1995, 37-year-old Jeannie Hesselschwert was living with her fiance, Mike Monahan, in Arlington, Massachusetts. In July of that year, Jeannie and Mike left for a planned trip to Yosemite National Park in California to go backpacking and sightseeing. And about 2 hours into this drive, there was this turnout on the side of the road where a couple of other tourists were standing and sightseeing, and Jeannie and Mike decided they wanted to pull over. Mike said he wanted to walk down the trail a little ways to this area that apparently was good for bird watching. And Jeannie didn't want to do that. She wanted to walk in the other direction up to this overlook. And so they decided that they would each get to do their own activities. They'd be gone for 15 minutes and then meet back at the car. So Mike heads down and does his bird watching, and then after 15 minutes, he walks back up to the car expecting to see Jeannie, but she's not there. And this is 1995. Neither of them had a cell phone, and he starts walking up the trail to see if he can find her. But he realizes the trail immediately spiders off in different directions. And so at this point, he decides, I have to get authorities involved. The search for Jeannie would become the largest in Yosemite's history, expanding to 40 square miles. After 2 weeks of looking everywhere for her, the only thing they were able to find were 2 boot prints that they believed belonged to Jeannie. The first print was found in the vicinity of where their car was parked, and then the other one was curiously located on a trail that was one of the biggest trails in Yosemite. 2 months after Jeannie went missing, 2 men were in this really remote section of Yosemite to go fishing when they spotted a human body in a pool of water. It would turn out to be Jeannie's. She was 3 miles from where she was last seen by Mike at that trailhead. She was only wearing socks and 1 boot, and she had been sitting in this pool of water for so long that they were unable to determine a cause of death. Initially, it was speculated that she must have fallen into the river that fed ultimately down to where she was found, but park officials said there's too many debris along this waterway that her body would never have been able to get down to this spot. But if she didn't drift to that spot, it meant she had to have gotten there on foot. The only way to get there is to climb up a cliff with climbing gear on. The next theory was, okay, she must have been abducted and they brought her here. That means your assailant would have had to carry Jeannie down this 2,000-foot cliff, which also seems really unrealistic. The most widely accepted theory was put forth by a tracker that was involved in this case. They went out and they surveyed the area where Jeannie would have been, and they noticed that the sound the wind made when it passed by this particular clump of aspen trees, it sounded like a car driving by. And so they speculated that maybe Jeannie, she's scared and she hears this sound and she thinks she's hearing a road. And so she would have walked towards the sound of the car, which really was the leaves. She could have potentially wound up at the side of that cliff, and then she could have slipped and fallen over the edge. But park officials and authorities were a little bit skeptical of this theory. It was almost like she would have had to leap off the cliff to land in that stretch of water. But park officials and authorities, they don't have a better theory. In fact, no one has a better theory. We're just left with a lot of questions.